live, you are live.
Good morning and welcome to this sunrise safari. A very cloudy morning it is, but an exciting morning. There were mating leopards around, and thanks to Lucy, Kevin, Catfish and many others who let us know and spotted them on the Djuma cam. So a very important question, guys, is which way did they go from the Djuma cam? So if we have a look now, we are on the dam wall, and Vem's going to show you where the cam is. Did they go towards the lodge? Did they go towards the dam wall? Would they go behind the camera, or did they go straight north opposite the camera? So if you can let me know which way they went, hopefully we can find them for you. So we're gonna, while you guys let me know which way they went, I'm gonna do a big loop around this area, see if we can find any tracks. My name is Brent Leo Smith. I have Vem on camera. We have Djuma and Brian on the other vehicle. And we have Kirsten and Rebecca in final control. So the cloud we're experiencing at the moment, I think, is going to break up. As you can see already, there's some gaps in it. Oh, hang on. There's guinea fowl alarm calling. Well, they're just shouting for the joy of morning. I think they're just shouting for the joy of morning. Yes, definitely not alarm calling. Make sure those leopards didn't wander east. So with mating leopards, the nice thing about them is they're quite noisy, so that makes them a little bit easier to find. Thanks very much, Shelley. They drank at the pan and went left towards the lodge, so we're on the right track. Now hopefully they haven't meandered too far, and shortly the dawn will be broken by the sound of mating leopards. The one slight negative is they were drinking at 3:30 in the morning, so that means they could have put some distance between themselves and the pan. So we will try our best to relocate them. Well, Chris says, oh my God, it's not dark anymore at the beginning of drive. And that is correct. We have changed. We are going out slightly later as we move into the winter months or dry season. So very observant of you, Chris. And before the end, hang on, no, that's a hyena. And before the end of winter, strangely enough, we will be going out in the dark again as it changes. Now, till the winter solstice, we'll be getting light later and later until that turning point where it'll start getting light earlier and earlier again. Well, we're in search of these leopards. Let's jump on board with Djuma so she can bid you a wonderful morning.
And a very good morning to all of you, and welcome to our sunrise safari. For those of you meeting us for the first time, my name is Jamie and I have Brian on camera with me this morning, and we're also assisting in the search for these mating leopards. Our Yet, for those of you who were watching the sunset safari yesterday, I made a promise that I would go straight back to the hyena den that was reported to be active and double check and see, since we haven't seen our hyena cubs and our hyena clan members in quite a considerable period of time. I did go and check, and it wasn't active. There were no cubs about. There was one hyena that was already in the process of disappearing off into the bushes in a spot that was impossible to follow. So I'm not quite sure what's going on with our hyenas. I don't know if they're switching between dens every night around Aubrey's Road. They were reported to be active in the den site that we've seen them in relatively regularly over the last 10 days. This morning they were just around. So we have changed our route plans. I'm now heading back towards, or I'm coming from the northern side of the Djuma Dam. So Brent approached from the south. I'm checking to the north. Those leopards were seen at 3:30 this morning, which has given them a good 2.5 hours or almost 2.5 hours to wander off somewhere different. I'm going to hazard a guess as to where they might be and check along the drainage lines around the lodge. I've made one tiny error in judgment this morning, and that was the temperature, because I'm currently in the process of becoming hypothermic. That might be a slight exaggeration, but I'm definitely chillier than I was when I set off this morning. There we go, that's better. It's one of those cool, cloudy mornings that started off warm and is now exceptionally chilly. Lucy, you've sent through the update about which way the leopards went. You're saying that they went towards the lodge and then south-southwest from there. Well, thank you, Lucy, for that update. I'm just going to double check before I go and check around Gallagher Pan. I'm just going to double check the access road. I drove it earlier this morning, but it was still slightly dark. So it could be that I missed their tracks wandering across there. And now it's just a guessing game as to which way Tingana decided to go. And it is, with mating leopards, it is essentially the male that decides when he's going to move about, and the female follows along with him, which is why you find situations like this where Thandi, Karula's daughter, is sitting right in the heart of Karula's territory. They were seen mating as an issue for major concern. Tingana is not a threat to Karula's cubs. He's probably, or at least he could be, the father. And so far has been so good. He hasn't lived up to maybe an unfair reputation that he's been given. And Thandi, as Karula's daughter, will also not be interested in hassling Karula or her cubs. Although I can't imagine that Karula was terribly impressed with the state of affairs. She certainly wasn't the last time that happened.
He was to check.
I'm sorry guys, I'm just listening to the game drive comms with half an ear. It's James out on tracking team now to help us follow up on the mating leopards. We've seen Thandi mating with Tingana 3 times in the last few weeks, 3 different sessions. This is the 3rd now, and it's obviously she hasn't fallen pregnant the first 2 times. But if this particular time is successful, Teresa, you were wondering about how long the gestation period is for a leopard. Oh, somebody's looking very sleepy. Good morning. Sorry, Teresa, I'll be with you in 1 second. Oh, so deeply asleep he hasn't even lifted his head. Oh, there we go. Morning, sorry. It's okay. You carry on your nap. Don't mind us. Fair enough. Give him whites of my eye, whites of his eye.
Morning.
Yeah, this is quite a common approach of the animals in the early morning when it's a cool, cloudy morning like this. They tend to stay sleeping for a little bit longer. He looks terribly comfortable lying where he is, not even ruminating. And just have a quick look at that oxpecker that's sitting on him. That is a red-billed oxpecker minus the red bill. It's actually a juvenile, it's still a youngster. So that bill in the process of changing from black to red. You can really see the way that this oxpecker is sitting. You can really see those, oh, yes, feed me. Never mind that I'm sitting on my own buffet. Please feed me. Isn't that interesting? That little interaction. Begging, constant begging. You would think that he would have plenty of access to food to get himself, and yet still reliant on mom and dad to feed him. Ah, look at that. The search for the leopards collides. Morning. I haven't seen any tracks coming. Haven't seen any tracks coming this way. Okay.
I'm gonna go check back around.
Yeah, maybe I've missed something on an access road crossing. Okay. Brent casually and very gently blinding us with his lights still on to help him spot tracks. But yes, that little interaction was really interesting between juvenile and mom and dad. The whole life cycle played out on the backs of buffalo and giraffe and impala. He's up, sort of, having a good chew. Does his right eye look a little bit bulging? That's interesting. I wonder if it's just the angle that it's at, or if he's had some kind of injury to it. Fascinated by this oxpecker as well. I mean, it looks like it wants to feed itself. You would think it would be a very easy thing to do on the back of a buffalo. But that serrated beak that oxpeckers have, obviously this juvenile hasn't fully learned to use it. And the way that oxpeckers pull ticks off buffalo, because it's actually quite difficult to dislodge a tick. It's not an easy thing. Their mandibles manage to dig into the skin of the animal and clasp tight. So it takes quite a fair amount of force to pluck them off. The oxpeckers comb their beaks through the fur of the animal to pull them off. We have a question from Rebecca about why oxpeckers' beaks turn red. And the answer is it's the species type. There's two different species of oxpecker. This is the most common of them, the red-billed oxpecker. There is also an oxpecker that has recently done an amazing recovery in terms of species number, which is the yellow-billed oxpecker, which has a half yellow, half red beak, and almost became extinct in this area until some seriously concerted efforts of various conservationists managed to pull it together and help to rehabilitate their numbers. But the red-billed oxpecker is the most common. I'm just listening to James's updates as well. But Rebecca, why does this animal have either a yellow or a red bill? What is it that confers that advantage? And the answer is I don't know. With color in birds, it's almost always a reproductive tactic. So birds take one of two approaches. One is the subtle coloring of the francolins, the more camouflage-oriented approach, and then you get the bright-colored lilac-breasted rollers, kingfishers, which go for the incredibly beautiful plumage. And there's no real complete explanation as to why it is that they do that color. Most theories seem to converge around the idea that it is a reproductive advantage and that the better, brighter colors communicate well to prospective mates. Buffalo looking intently at me, perhaps learning something about the colors of oxpeckers' bills. Probably not, though. I think he's just quite happily chewing on his cud. Okay, Buffalo, I'm sorry, we need to leave you. We need to go and find those leopards. Let's jump on the back with Brent and find out how his tracking's going.
So no tracks yet. It seems like they've done a disappearing maneuver. Don't worry, we're on it. And Commander Bond is out on tracking team giving us a hand. So if we think about Tingana and Tingana's territory and Tingana's normal routes, because you must remember, she's going to be following him. And he's come in from the west. So I'm thinking he might head east. So they came down here last night, and now I think this is before you guys would have seen them on the Djuma camp. So I'm going to ignore these tracks for now, and then wherever they've gone from the pad, they've decided not to use the road. 1 second.
Seems as though Brent disappeared off your screen. Just one of those slightly more dodgy signal patches, apparently, that he's got to go and check for. Okay, let me think. You just caught me in the middle of trying to rack my brains around where is best to search, since Brent has already checked around the Gallagher Pan area. I still have a funny feeling they might be in those drainage lines there. But before I act on that assumption, I'm just going to check more carefully around the drainage lines. They might have gone, as we had that update from Lucy, they might have gone south-southwest and done the leopard thing and gone north-northeast. You know how leopards do. Snuck around the back of the camera and popped out somewhere else. And since both Brent and James are very thoroughly checking the area to the south of me, I'm going to head north and just check around there, just in case they have pulled a sneaky leopard maneuver on us. We have been so incredibly fortunate with leopard sightings over the past few weeks. And so many of them have been centered around where I am now, which is essentially our home. You know, that's right around our camps, right around this quarantine clearings area. We're definitely exceptionally fortunate in the area that we are in on Djuma.
Which route are you checking?
Just making sure that we don't all end up checking in the same place. The difficulty here now, of course, is that the hyenas have been, despite the fact that they don't seem to want to appear on camera and they don't want to come out of their dens, they have been exceptionally active, and there's tracks crisscrossing all over the show. And once vehicle traffic starts to increase, it gets harder and harder to distinguish when you're just looking at the sort of the curve of a back pad or the curve of a toe. Right, let's go back to where they were last seen. I'm just wondering perhaps if this chilly weather hasn't played a role in keeping the hyenas in their den for at least this morning. But John, on the subject of hyenas, you were wondering, could it be that the hyenas don't like all of the traffic around their den, and that might be why they have moved? John, I don't think so. I mean, it's a possibility, But judging by the way that the animals react, the adults barely pay us any attention at all. And the cubs actually appear to enjoy having the company of the vehicle sometimes. It provides a nice little distraction from their day-to-day boredom when they get tired of playing with each other and chewing on sticks.
I'm busy checking now. I'm not sure they've gone from the bank.
Then our tires are quite a useful distraction. Sorry, I'm just listening to the tracking updates. I heard a squirrel alarm calling, but it's alarm calling at a Wahlberg's eagle. Awesome, thanks, Brian. See that very, very square tail?
Djuma junction with the dam road. I'm just trying to see where they've gone from here.
Here it goes. And the squirrel chattering away in response. Awesome. Well done, Brian.
Yeah, Texas. I'm not sure. I'll check where they've gone crossing from here.
Okay. Brent has once again crossed our path, or we've crossed our path with Brent. So we're going to leave him to check these tracks. We'll go check the western side of quarantine. I thought he was a little bit further south than he was. Try and coordinate this a little bit better. Now, Taxon's just said he thinks he's got the tracks coming up onto quarantine. So perhaps it might even be worth going to check the western edge around Zoe's Road. Now, Brent is wandering around Djuma Dam, trying to figure out the direction of the last tracks. I'm going to follow Lucy's update and guess that they're going to pop out somewhere around here. Teresa, I'm very sorry. I don't think I answered your question on gestation periods of leopards. I got completely distracted by the buffalo. And I'm not sure if Brent did either. Probably not. Sorry, Teresa. I was right in the middle of answering it. So, Teresa, first of all, you wanted to know about gestation periods of leopards, and we spoke that if this mating is successful, we'll have roughly 3 months, between 95 and 100 days, maybe even 90 days, depending. It differs from area to area, and from individual leopard to individual leopard, just like within women. It can differ by a couple of weeks over or sooner than 9 months. So it's about 3 months that we will have to wait for cubs to make an appearance. But we are so fortunate in that both Karula and her daughter Shadow, Thandi's sister, both have cubs. And that actually brings me to my next question, which was also from Teresa, about how many leopards there are in the area that we track. And Teresa, the answer is, let's just list them by name. Karula, of course, being, I would say, our main character. This is the center of her territory. And she is the mother of Shadow, who lives next door, sort of, if you can put it that way. She has the territory adjacent to Karula. Thandi, her other daughter, who also has the territory adjacent to her. We've also got Tingana, the main dominant male leopard that we see. We could see Mbula, who's recently become something of a nomad. He's got to the age where he's just that little bit too old to keep defending a territory. We have the Anderson male on the odd occasion, right towards the western fringes of our boundary, and one of the biggest leopards the Sabi Sands has ever seen. We could see Quarantine and Kanuma, although they seem to have dispersed quite far to the south now. Those are Karula's two sons. There's also now a mystery male that's been nicknamed Djuma. So that's 9 so far. There's also always the possibility of other leopards wandering in. As I said, with Tingana mating with them, he will draw them in to territories outside of their normal home ranges and boundaries. So that's them. Once we expand to Cheetah Plains, we could see Inkanyeni and her 2 cubs. And then there's a couple of others that might make an appearance. Leopards, whilst they have home ranges, they have sort of strict territories that they defend, they have larger home ranges, and they do occasionally wander into each other's territories. There's a very large degree of overlap. So, for example, a Shimbambalan could come along here. We could get a totally unknown leopard from anywhere in the area. Unfortunately, we did see another female leopard known as Quitile, but it seems as though, I mean, it's never been 100% confirmed, but she hasn't been seen since the last sighting of her, where she looked exceptionally ill. Suspected snake bite, but we probably will never know exactly what happened to her. And then there's also the possibility of Salaeshe. Now, Salaeshe is a very large female leopard that lives to the west of our boundary. Her female cub has just turned, or is close to 1 year old now, and apparently at 9 months old took down a fully grown impala by itself. So she apparently could well be carrying the Anderson male's genes. Nice large size leopard. And we might find that she decides, or I'd really like to hope that she decides, once she establishes her territory, that she decides to establish it sort of between her mothers and shadows, which would be wonderful. But those are our predominant leopard characters at the moment. That could always change. The wildlife is in a constant state of flux.
Last symptoms I can see from the pan goes straight up towards Yuri's car.
One of the best ways to find mating leopards, and I'm concentrating quite hard on not missing their tracks coming through here. One of the best ways to find a mating leopard pair is to listen. Now, it's not a quiet act. There's a great deal of growling and snarling that happens when leopards mate, both from the female and from the male, although it's the male that makes most of the noise. That could be how we end up finding them this morning, by just stopping and listening. One of the reasons why I stopped at that buffalo was just to have a chance to sit and listen. It also it should carry fairly well. The only problem is that the wind is blowing. So if we're on the wrong side of the sound, the wind might actually blow it away from us. Fred said his last set of tracks were heading straight towards Yuri's house, so to the west of the Djuma Dam. Let's find out, and let's get that update straight from him.
So we're just trying to figure out where these leopards could have gone, and these tracks are now heading almost directly to final control. So let's stay on them for a while. I do apologize if my head's hanging off the side, but we are trying to find you a mating pair of leopard. So I've got both the male and female tracks going through here now. Now it looks like Karula's also trailing them, so there's 3 different leopards from the tracks that I can see. Have a look at the hair. I want to see if they've gone down the edge of the fence of the lodges, or they've carried on up the access road.
Are back once again on the back of Wendy proving to be the old reliable this morning. Hopefully he managed to hear enough from Wendy to get the update on his plans and where he's going to go. I think I want to go all the way to the western corner of quarantine and then sit and listen. Let's try that tactic, because this driving around thing is clearly not working out for us, or at least not yet. Might be worth it. I just wish the wind wasn't howling quite so much. which was making life a bit more difficult. Now this drainage line is also a very, very popular leopard spot. And on this particular patch of soil on Quarantine, it could be very easy to miss their tracks going in there. This is where our ears are going to play a good role. See if we can't find a bird to stop and look at so that I can stop and listen. Keep your eyes peeled. You never know. One day we're going to have a situation where one of the viewers spots something before we do. I challenge you all to see the leopards before we do. Certainly I've had plenty of occasions where the cameramen have spotted them before I have.
Off you, Connie? They went west from Bush.
There we go.
Okay, copy. Towards, so it's what time?
Aubrey's found the tracks coming straight towards us. I'm just checking along this part of the road. I don't think they've walked down here.
Come around that side there. There's no one there. I've crossed. It's so slow that I've been not either.
I'm just listening to Taxon, so maybe our guess about the drainage line was spot on.
Yeah, maybe check. Finish road that side.
Okay.
Okay.
Right. Aubrey's checking that side.
I copy Aubrey. I think you further on from the high back there.
Let's go back along this road. They're somewhere here. I'm sure they're in this drainage line. Taxon's checked all the way towards the west, so towards the western side on the other side of this drainage line. So they're somewhere in this block. And now it's just a matter of hearing them or figuring out exactly which way they've gone. Backwards and forwards, it's all a question of patience at this point. Plenty of patience and just double checking oneself as you go along. The other problem with a cloudy day like today is that the light doesn't make it terribly easy for us to see tracks. Without the sunlight sort of hitting the ridges of the tracks in the sand at the right angle, everything becomes flat. I could describe it like that. It's very flat like that. It's very flat light. But it does look as though it might be clearing soon, which will make our jobs even easier. Come on, you two. Leopards. You must be here somewhere. Well, at least we've established a direction at this point, where they went from the dam. One of the things that we do whenever we do find the leopards, if we are sitting with them and we see them defecate, or if we find leopard scat in an area where we know which particular leopard is moving about there, we pick it up very carefully with gloves or sticks without touching it, and we put it in a test tube and we send that test tube across to Panthera. What Panthera is busy doing is conducting an enormous, truly enormous study into testing the genetics of leopard, and in particular focusing on paternity of leopard cubs and trying to figure out just how many cubs are actually fathered by dominant male leopards in an area and how many are fathered from outside. And the ramifications of that are, first of all, they're enormous just in terms of the leopard dynamics, but also it really gives you an idea by genetic analysis of just how far a male leopard has come and dispersed from. Now, some of the leopards in this area we know very, very well. They've been tracked from birth. But others, like Djuma, for example, to analyze his DNA would be fascinating. We could find that he emerged from somewhere completely far away from where we are now. And Paul, you were wondering, since you watched one of the safaris where we put Tingana's feces into a test tube, you were wondering if we've got any of the results back yet. The answer is no, we haven't. Sorry, I just need to listen to this. My game drive comms are fairly soft.
Oh, Kilo, that's her. Oops, I've got that in concept. It comes out of twin jams. It goes to the pan in front of Vuyatela and then goes through between Eureka and Vuyatela and then sort of cuts southwest onto Quarantine.
I hope they're not sitting in the middle of quarantine and we're all five of us have just been driving circles around them and not noticing. That would be terribly embarrassing.
I'll go back and check last tracks. Last tracks I had were between...
sorry, Paul. The answer is no. We haven't... Oh, goodness. Oh, dear. How does he manage that? I thought he was around quarantine.
He's everywhere today.
I know. He's got portals. I mean, really? Okay. I'm not going back on myself again. I'm not doing it. I'm going this way. They're busy sitting listening, which is in the exact spot that I was going to go and sit and listen. So at least I know that we have very similar plans. Good thing we've checked everywhere. At least we know that we're double, triple checking each other, whether we want to or not. Paul, it takes quite a long time for those genetic testing results to come through. And you'll probably find that they're going to hold off on sharing that information with us until the study is complete, or at least until it is partially complete. But I promise you, as soon as we do know any results, we will let you know. Morning. I'm deliberately trying to check where you're not checking.
Apparently we've got a gremlin. We're still black screen.
Yes, I know. I hear so.
We're not sure why. The tech department is on it.
Okay.
But we might have to go visit them in a personal capacity shortly.
Aha. All right. Morning,
We're
Liam.
going to try find these leopards before we run back.
Disappear off. Isn't
Tracks going everywhere.
Liam's beard is terribly impressive.
It is. Oh, very nice.
All right, I'm going to keep trying to dodge you unsuccessfully.
So these tracks are going everywhere. I mean, there's tracks going in east, west, north, south. James has been listening. He hasn't heard anything. I haven't heard anything.
Yeah, Tax is checked around Ballinitis Junction, so...
Yeah, there's no tracks going there. Last tracks are between FC and Vuyatela.
Okay. All right, let's continue on. See if we can't figure out which way they've gone. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Enjoy your sitting and listening. Cheers. All right, shall we try and pick a different route to the one Brent's going to take? I have a feeling I'm going to go around the corner and he's somehow going to be there in front of me. If I were the leopards, which way would I go? Oh, it's an impossible question. How many is that? There's 5 of us looking for these leopards. So we are going to find them. If they can be found, we are going to find them. There's Taxon and Aubrey from Vuyatela and Gallagher, plus their trackers. And then there's James, Brent, and myself, all looking as well. Plus, of course, our incredibly eagle-eyed cameraman to assist us. So we really should be able to find them. What do you think, Brian? Race Brent to find them?
Yes.
I think that's a good idea.
I think so.
Let's see if we can't figure this out before Brent does. question is, who's going to find them first? Will it be A, Taxon, B, Aubrey, C, James, D, Brent, or E, myself? Now that is the serious question. These are the pressing concerns that haunt us first thing in the morning. Sorry, I'll be with you in 1 second. Standing by.
Where were you heading? Where I saw you?
I'm going to take Finn's Road. I'll check along there.
Copy, I'm going to take a gander at Access, try a little bit further away since I haven't heard anything yet.
Copy, I think that's quite a good idea. There's a good chance I missed them on my way up this morning.
Copy.
Please don't let me have missed those tracks this morning. I'll never hear the end of it. I was concentrating, so I shouldn't have, but it was dark and it is cloudy and it is windy, so I might have. On the subject of the weather, Candy, in Memphis, you were wondering, how does the windy weather affect the animals? Is it better? Is it worse? Is it good for hunting? The answer is this kind of wind is really useful to predators for hunting. It unsettles the general game, so the prey animals that are potential prey species tremendously. They can't hear properly because there's constant rustling. The wind is blowing sound away or sound towards them. They can't quite gauge distance from where the wind is coming from. And it also blows or messes with their sense of smell. So it blows scents away from them. It's really easy for a predator to pick a spot downwind and creep up slowly. So for predators, it is of a tremendous advantage. For the general game species, it's terribly unsettling, and you'll see it with almost all animals, including the predators. Even they are a little bit unsettled in windy weather, just because although it's easier for them to hunt, it does also carry the same disadvantages in that it's easier for example, if they're a leopard, it'd be easier for a lion to sneak up on them, for example, or just to bump into them, since their senses are robbed a little bit of their potency. You'll find with antelope, buffalo maybe a bit less so, although the breeding herds get very unsettled in this weather, and elephants especially seem to get upset when it's windy. And I don't know, I found that with human beings as well. Personally, and it's not every person, but personally, I find myself just that little bit more restless when there's wind howling, when there's particularly strong wind. I get not nervous, just restless, I think is the best description, antsy. Like I want to constantly be moving. And I don't know if that's just my personality type, or if perhaps it is to do with ancient instincts telling us that windy days are dangerous. Who knows? Let's find out if Brent has any opinion on that particular subject.
So it looks like we've beaten the gremlin with a stick. As you can see, my stick is extended for whacking gremlins as they pop their heads up. But we have defeated the gremlin, but so far the leopards are winning the battle of the tracks. So we have 5 people looking for these leopards at the moment, and we're not sure where they've gone. So there's a lot of people checking close around the lodge. So just in case they've headed a bit further out, I'm going to head. Jamie has tracks just to the south of us, so we're going to loop round further away and try to jump ahead of them. Sorry, just listening to the Game Drive channel. So well done, Djuma. So clever. Just gonna chat on the Game Drive channel quickly. one would hope between all of us. Jamie's heard them. Okay, Jamie's got audio, so we're going to loop around and see if we can help. Although there's a lot of cars there, maybe we should go look for lions. What do you think, Vim?
You did find a male lion coming past the pan.
Yes, but that was from yesterday. We tracked those yesterday.
Fair enough.
Former girls could come back. So if Jamie's got audio and she's got Tax and Aubrey right there, it's probably not the best idea for us to also zoom around there. And so we're going to move off a little bit, see if we can find something else. So Scott on Twitter says, go find the bee boys. Well, if we find any tracks, Scott, we certainly shall try. Unfortunately, I think they are outside of our traverse at the moment. But you never know, they might have meandered back overnight. I thought this cloud was going to break up, and it started to, and then it looks like this grey bank is rolling in from the west. Now I don't think we're going to get any rain off that. It's sort of a very dry at the moment. There's no humidity in the air. Sorry, Tax, go again. Copy, thanks. So we're having a look here. Sorry about that, I was just on the radio. There's a lot of birds in these little quarry bushes at the moment. They are fruiting. You can see the hornbills are having a feast over there. Look at them picking the berries. Ooh, look out. Vim, are you hungry?
I got fruits.
Vim's got fruits. I might go wait for those hornbills to finish eating and go pick a guarri berry or two. They're very sweet and tasty. Oh, the hornbills are gone. So let's go have a look. So one of the most amazing things about certain of the fruiting trees around here is that as we get closer to this bush, so we'll have a look here. So they will become ripe at different times to ensure that, so you can see there's lots of different colors and various stages of ripeness. So to ensure that they get spread and not all the fruit is wasted, they will become ripe at different times. So there will be a constant feeding for a prolonged period on the bush. But guarri fruit is quite nice. There's another one here. Are you sure you don't want to try?
Give myself.
If the hornbills know what they're doing. There you go. There you go, him. I want to try. So it's really sweet. This is a slight tanninish taste, but really, really yummy. Oh, that one's got a worm. Graham, I think we should spend our drive here eating guarri seeds. What do you think?
We like breakfast.
It's breakfast. So, let me just... Now, There we go. So not only will birds, there we go, that's the seed. It looks like a big solid thing. This one, there we go, that one I've taken the outer skin off. And you can see it's actually got a split down the middle. So it's actually two seeds inside a single fruit. And not only birds are not the only lovers of the guarri. People love the guarri. And also civet, genet, monkeys, baboons. Now, you don't find many of the antelope going for the fruit species. It seems to be far more the omnivores than the birds. And very few of the animals will actually even eat guarri leaves. So they're not really, really tasty in comparison to the seed, in my opinion. So if we try a leaf, very high in tannins. Like literally numbs and dries your whole mouth. Oh, I need fruit to replace that terrible taste. So I'm just going to pick a few. We're going to move on shortly, but and take a few snacks for the road. So we'll see how many edible plant species we can find this morning. Let's do that while Jamie is in search of leopards. So the magic guarri. Now, a lot of safari guides will happily tell you the toothbrush story. I refuse to do so. But it is actually more an interesting species. Now, it always grows where there's a high underground water content. So very often on duplex soil. So you've got the sand and clay. And you can see the sand here, but there's clay just underneath. You can see there's a lot more grass in certain areas. The other nice thing about the guarri is, if you've been bewitched, it's a very important tree. If you have had the black magic put on you, and one of the ways witches are quite fond of killing you out here is via lightning. But if you carry a guarri branch with you, or you pop one in your home, it'll save you from the lightning. Now, the scientific name for the magic guarri is Euclea divinorum, sorry. Now, the reason it's called divinorum is it's used for water divining. So if you cut a nice forked branch and walk around, when you go over underground water, it'll pull you down. Now, I was a huge skeptic of water divining. Where are we looking?
That's dead.
Oh, well spotted. There you go. I'm pretty sure those vervet monkeys are in this area specifically for these guarri bushes that are on fruit. There we go. That's actually quite a nice, interesting shot. You know, he's sitting in a dead knobthorn tree. And if we look behind over there, you can see the bush is moving. So I'm pretty sure there's more monkeys there. There we go. You can actually see one. There it is. Whoa! Jumping monkeys. So jumping straight into those guarris, and those guarris down there are also fruiting. And the one in the dead tree is probably keeping a lookout for any potential predators. Moved up to the left there. So having a look, making sure there's no... Oh, he's scratching himself. No, maybe... Oh, there we go. Yeah. So it's more than likely a male, and he's keeping a lookout in case of leopard, lion, and birds. Actually, he's looking for martial eagles and things that might feed off monkeys. So you quite often with monkeys will find a sentry whose job is to make sure that everyone else is safe while they're feeding. And the sentry position will swap. So there we go. Now often with a lot of the edible plants out here, we never get a chance because the monkeys are too fast and the birds. and the civets and everything. But fortunately, with quarries, they occur in such wonderful thickets. You can actually see the coloration of the ones that have fruit compared to the ones that don't. You can see there's a slightly reddish tinge to them. So Annabelle is wondering, do they taste like blueberries? No. I would say they taste like a cross between blackberries and raspberries. Best description I can probably give. Unfortunately, as I said, there's not much flesh on them, and I would probably have to pick for the next 3 hours to actually get a big group of them. I know quite a few people make different preserves out of them, jams, marmalade. But it's a slightly more subtle taste, and if you get them slightly wrong, I mean, if they're a little bit unripe, the tannins in them are almost as bad as eating the leaves. There we go. Lady Lugo was wondering, could they be made into jam or wine? I've never heard of them being made into an alcoholic beverage. In this part of the world, the two fruits that are generally chosen for the making of alcohol are the marullas, but we didn't have a very good marula season this year, and the brown ivory. The brown ivory, I wouldn't call it wine. It's probably more like moonshine. So very, very strong, and there's moonshine made out of it, and in South Africa quite a lot of our moonshine is called mampur, and it is generally very strong. I tend to try avoid it. Vim, are you a mampur drinker? No. And Vim says no. Yes.
Stay away from that stuff.
White and tart of mampur will put you on your head. So we generally try to stay away from that. As people who wake up early in the morning, it generally disagrees. So Jamie and James and Tax and everyone are standing by trying to listen to where those leopards are. So when leopards are mating, they'll call about every 15 minutes. So the best way to find them is to just keep still and listen. And speaking of something that keeps still, this animal is even named for keeping still. It is a little steenbok, or now it's on the move. And there we go. Yeah. Little female steenbok, basically translated to brick antelope, and their main defense against predators is to keep very, very still. Quite often they'll just lie down, go flat, and then just keep very, very still. And they live in such small territories, probably about 4 acres. So, and they defend that against other males and females, a completely monogamous pair. So when you live in a small area, you're always going to be around. So it's quite useful to be able to keep dead still. And I've watched leopard, lion, wild dog actually walk right past them. There we go. So it looks like our gremlin stick has worked. Heard them again, so while they're all standing by very close in one area, we're just going to do this big long loop around the outside. So Megan's actually asked a very interesting question. Do monkey species ever alarm at humans? Vervet monkeys, not generally. In an area where they have been sort of persecuted by humans a lot, it is possible, but highly unlikely. It's got a caterpillar in its mouth. There we go. Is it a caterpillar? No, it's not. It is a... Is it? In my binoculars, I can't really see what it is that hornbill's got. Maybe let's try a photograph. And try to figure out what he's got in his mouth. Oh dear, that didn't help much. It's a hairy caterpillar. And he's flown off. Now you can just see it. I thought it had wings, but it's not. So it's a hairy caterpillar, probably from one of the moths. And We'll notice a lot of the birds are feeding off this explosion of caterpillars at the moment. And the cuckoos have even moved back in the area to feed off all those caterpillars. So while we continue on our meanderings, Jamie actually has a mammal with a heartbeat. Unfortunately, not the leopards, but I know she's still in hot pursuit.
I had a mammal. The mammal is slowly disappearing. And we've got some kudu here. Now, while you were with Brent, I've been sitting, listening intently. I found their tracks moving off into this block, and I heard something somewhere go, which is my sort of half-hearted attempt at what mating leopards sound like. And the difficulty is with an earpiece in and with the wind blowing, I couldn't determine exactly where it came from, and I caught only the tail end of it. I was in the middle of talking on Game Drive Channel, calling in the tracks when I heard it. So, you know, with your mind split in different directions and with your hearing split in different directions, I can't quite tell exactly where the sound was coming from. So I've been sitting waiting for them to mate again so that we can figure out exactly where they are. The difficulty is...
Guys, that one of them always road. One of us is just on top of this last time.
Got it.
On the ground.
Got her. Copy that. Well done, Orbs. I'm going to make my way.
Yeah, also met the Bella not here.
Awesome. So they were just that little bit further from where we thought they were.
Sorry, what? I keep coming south. Copy that. Passing this old PC car truck. I'm also making my way out, but I'm still too far. I'm coming very slowly.
Yes, well done, Aubrey. Hey, Brian, some teamwork there. We got it. We got them. Told you we were going to get them. It was just a matter of time. Everybody watch your heads. Everybody duck. You okay there, Brian? Awesome. I'm so excited. I really enjoy seeing Thandi. Just that similarity, that genetic similarity between her and Shadow and Karula is fascinating to me. You can so clearly see that she's Shadow's twin sister. So I hope you're all as excited as I am. Oh, we nearly found them. Nearly. They were just that little bit further than I thought they were. It's amazing how the noise of mating leopards' sound travels. And no wonder those kudu were looking so relaxed. Yay! Oh, what a way to continue a morning.
Yeah, also good job.
Right, let's keep our eyes peeled, see if we can't spot Aubrey and Taxon. They're somewhere along this road. Wow, they're a lot further than I realized.
Aubrey.
That's incredible.
See, I can't bypass you on days. I'm just going to shoot past, or is it on the antenna?
Now, Liz in Wisconsin, you are very excited. It's the first time you've ever seen Thandi.
Copy that.
It's only my third time, I think, seeing her, so I'm also incredibly excited. It's wonderful building up a collection of different characters. Wow, they're a lot further south than I realized. Goodness gracious. Well, at least we heard that. Brian?
Yeah.
we did well, sort of. Aubrey, can I make my way in?
Welcome to.
Copy that, thank you. Oh, so exciting. Now, where? Everybody seems to be looking in different directions. Oh, duh. Just gonna walk straight across in front of us here. Hello, Thandi. How wonderful to see you. She's gonna go mate with him. Oh. They're both moving off. This is a very, very thick block. Thank goodness we've managed to see them now.
Sorry, can you just confirm that block?
Look at that size difference between a male and a female.
Yeah,
Sure. Okay. This is where things are going to get a little bit tricky, everyone. I'm going to try stay with them. Let's see if we can't find a path in. I'm going to try and move behind Taxon there. Hopefully they're not going to go too far. Just let Aubrey go ahead. Don't disappear into a thick block, not now that we've just seen you. Oh, at least we got to see them slightly. It's so dense in here. We all have to follow a very similar route to get in. Okay, this is going to be very, very tricky. It's an incredibly dense block, and there's 3 different vehicles moving about. So I'm just going to send you back across to Brent just while we make our way in here, and I'll catch up with you shortly with those leopards again.
So exciting! Amazing leopard. Vim, sorry. But there we go. Our antenna had fallen down, unfortunately. We did such a good job at beating gremlins that even with the antenna down, it was working. So, exciting stuff. I know the male's Tingana. I'm not sure who the female is yet, but I'm sure Jamie will let you know as soon as she is able to. Oh, it is Thandi Tingana, the loved one. There we go. Isn't that exciting? So, while they follow up on that, I just chatted to Jams, and we're going to go see if we can find Karula. If no luck with Karula, I've had a report of the Inkahumas, unfortunately quite far to the north of our Traverse area, but that doesn't mean they couldn't come back. And they were hunting buffalo last night in Buffalo's Hook. They were hunting buffalo in Buffalo Corner. So we're going to check around towards the Mawati River and then head east and north, see if there's any tracks of any lions around. But the wonderful thing about being in the African bushes, even if there aren't any lions around, there's lots of other wonderful things. I think we're going to continue on our mission to find as many edible plant species as possible today. Liam and I are quite peckish, so we're going to keep snacking on the fruits of the bush as we move through. So Boyd is wondering what is my favourite fruit in the area. Well, Boyd, if I can ever get to it, because quite often I'm beaten to it by the other primates and birds. Coming up to it shortly. And there's one of the more difficult ones. Let's go see if it's got any fruit on it. And here it is coming up here. It is the tree the Nkuma Pride are named after. This is the brown ivory tree. Now, this is literally like a sweet in your mouth. Now, let's see, have we got any fruits? But as you can see, they're generally quite big trees, so it requires quite a bit of effort to get, but they haven't fruited this year, and it doesn't look like This one's going to, I can't see any fruits on that, which is quite disappointing, I won't lie. Oh dear, no fruits on my favorite fruiting tree in the area. So we shall continue on. Well, wherever you look, there's always something. So on these disturbed patches next to the edge of the roads, there's quite often some little perennial herbs that grow. And here we have one. Now, just because I said I was going to eat everything, I'm going to have to. And I don't really like it. There we go. This is for you, yeah? So I'm not a big fan of licorice, but this is wild aniseed.
Wow.
I don't really like licorice. And it's a really strong licorice flavour. Really, really strong. There we go. What I do for you guys. Whoa. So there we go. That's the little plant. And when I say strong licorice, I mean you can smell it even when you drive over it. Sorry, am I moving too much, Vim? Okay, let me put it on the dashboard then. And even when you drive over it, the smell of licorice permeates through the air. So, there you go. That's the second edible plant. Now, you can use it for cooking. And if you like licorice, then I'm sure it's wonderful. And I know a chef I used to work with often used to go out into the field and collect a lot of this. And he used to do sort of aniseed encrusted pork chops. Apparently, licorice and pork go well together. In my mind, licorice goes well with nothing. But there we go. Oopsie, there it goes. So that's the second edible plant. 1 second, guys. Mike, as far as I know, there are 3 stations there, or 2 standing by. Just letting the other vehicles know while Jamie is trying to follow those leopards through the bush. We've got lots of hyena tracks around, but that is not uncommon. So Vim, what do you think the next edible plant we shall find is?
No idea.
Let's turn that down. Lots of chatter and traffic over those leopards. Oh, well, it's edible, but it's certainly not a plant. And it's an old buffalo bull. I think he'd be a bit tough there. And I'm not going to go try and take a piece of tartar out of him. I think he'll be just fine. Now, got some oxpeckers on his back. We've actually seen this bull a few times before. There's that a wound on his right shoulder. And if he turns again, hopefully we'll be able to see it. Now, those oxpeckers provide a valuable service to a lot of animals, but they also quite often can cause some damage. So if we have a look at that wound, those oxpeckers have kept it open and made it bigger. So they feed off the congealed blood, so they keep picking at the wounds. There's a red-billed oxpeckers with a juvenile. Now, this poor chap has definitely seen better days. He even has a large scar on his scrotum. That must have been quite painful. But he's definitely towards the end of his years. Even though there is quite a bit of grass, he's showing a bit of lack of condition. You can see how his hips are sticking out compared to the one behind him. So, and then you can see the large scar on his scrotum there. You can see he's broken his tail. His hips are sticking out, so he's definitely towards the end of his years. And you can see he's got quite a stiff walk, maybe a bit arthritic as well. So Steph says, loves to see these old buffalo bulls trucking along. And that's literally what they're doing. They're just biding the time before the lions catch up with them. And one of the reasons that they're often together and not by themselves is just that a little group of them, they've got that little more chance of seeing off a lion attack. So, good old boys. Almost always reminds me of that song of American Pie, and the good old boys drinking whiskey and rye, except in this case, drinking pan water and feeding on panicum is what they do. So they're very much concentrated around areas that are easy to feed in and have lots of water. But these guys are just getting moving now, so as it gets darker, especially as we go towards the winter months, the areas they like to feed in that have high numbers of decent grasses and easy access to water are generally quite low-lying, so they get quite cold at night. So you find them up, especially in the early morning and in the evening as it gets dark, you'll find them higher up on the crests of the hills. What they're doing there is that the warm air rises, so it is a couple of degrees warmer generally on top of the hill than it will be at the bottom. So they will now be moving down. I think those guys in particular are going to head towards the treehouse waterhole, where they will spend their day wallowing and feeding and doing pretty much as little as possible. So very interesting that. Now we haven't seen a big herd for a while, and that's probably because of the green flush that's around us, so they're quite well spread at the moment. So Jen B is one of our lucky viewers who's actually been out here, and she went to Arathusa, and she said while they were at Arathusa they had lucky beans. Now what plant could this be from? Well, Jen, it could be from quite a few different plants. The Natal mahogany has a nice big lucky bean, probably about 4 or 5 centimeters in size. We have a lucky bean creeper, which is very small and pretty, but all look the same. There's red and black beans. And then there's the coral trees. I think it's probably from a coral tree if it was very small. And I do remember seeing a coral tree in the Arathusa grounds. So maybe a coral tree, a mahogany, or a creeper are the 3 different species that have very distinct lucky beans that we get in the Slavic Sands. There we go, very small, so they're either a lucky bean creeper or a coral tree. Now, a lucky bean creeper is not very common, so I'm probably going to go with a coral tree, and I do remember seeing a coral tree in the Arathusa Lodge grounds. Unfortunately, I would go look for one, but as far as I'm aware, we don't have any that I know of on Djuma. But if we do head off that way, and if I remember correctly, the coral tree's in the middle of the lodge, we can't exactly drive the back.
There you go. That, for those of you for whom this is a first-time experience, is what leopard mating sounds like. Now you can see why this block has been so difficult for us. It is almost impossible for us to get you a good view at the moment, unfortunately. But it was worth it just for the sound effects. And at some point, we will be able to reposition and get you a slightly better view, and they might move more out into the open. Oh, there was a sneeze there. So not the world's best view between the leaves, but at least you heard it. I'll try going forward a little bit, but I don't think that's going to help us very much. No. Okay, well, we're going to settle here for the moment. and just wait and see. Hopefully the two of them decide to get up and move more into the open. If not, we'll just wait for our turn to have a chance to have a look at them. This, judging by the amount of noise coming from these two, these guys have just started their mating. And in fact, I believe that yesterday was the first day that they were seen mating together. I'm going to have to, there's a good chance I'm going to have to reposition so that Aubrey can get out of here. It is an impossible block. You get the rough idea and see how dense this vegetation is. Believe it or not, there's 2 leopards hiding there. And if they didn't make such a noise, we may never have found them. Okay, should we do this? Should we try? Let's see if we can get a view. Oh. Gonna squeeze in here. Have you got a view of Thandi there? Shall I go back a little bit to you? There we go. At least we've got a view of Thandi, the beautiful Thandi, who looks so like her mother and her sister. At this point, I'm not even entirely sure where Tingana is. I mean, I know he's there, somewhere next to her, but I cannot see him at all. It's incredible the way that leopard camouflage works. You don't think of the brown tan color as being hidden in green, but when she lies like that, she could be part of the scenery, apart from that twitching tail and slight signs of irritation. Now, leopard mating, and it applies to all big cats, leopard mating is a very angry affair, and the reason behind that is that the male's penis is barbed, which means it hurts the female, and they copulate sort of once every 5 to 10 minutes in the beginning of their mating sessions for about 4 to 5 days. And there's lots and lots of energy expended. But that type of mating and that technique, that the reason that the male's penis is barbed is because the female needs that stimulation in order to ovulate. It's called induced ovulation. And what it means is that when she comes into estrus and she starts to mate, fertilization only occurs towards the end. And that means that a bigger, stronger, better male might have a chance to come along and mate with her, although Thandi would be hard-pressed to find a more suitable mating candidate. Tingana is most definitely the largest leopard around Djuma. He is second only to the Anderson male, who's a little bit further to the west of us. Approached by Shadow, Thandi's sister, then Karula, their mother, then Shadow again, then Karula again, then Kwetile once, and then now Thandi. So he's definitely been working very hard at mating with the different females of the area. Isn't it amazing how a couple of weeks ago, a sighting like this, we would have been able to see her perfectly. There was hardly any grass in this area. If there was, it was basically ankle height. And now, we can barely see her behind the grass and the overgrowth. And Heidi, absolutely, might not have been the clearest view that we got, but you are right, just hearing the sounds that they make is incredible. It's such a strange sound, I mean, it's a combination of a growl and a roar and something else, a whine, I guess. Oh, exhausted now. It's clearly been a busy night for her. Well, these two will continue this process for another few days before they go their separate ways. And chances are, unless the opportunity has really presented itself in a clear way, chances are they won't have eaten the entire time that they spend together. Which means that by the time they do go their separate ways, they're exhausted and absolutely starving. And as soon as she's finished with Tingana, she will go straight back south to her territory. She's right, she's sitting now. We are very close to our southwestern corner. She's actually sitting right in the overlap between her territory, her mother's territory, and her sister's territory. Which is fascinating. And she probably grew up in this area, or moving about this area. As far as I know, Thandi and Shadow are Karula's oldest cubs, or the oldest offspring. They're definitely no longer cubs. That puts them on about 9 years old. Is that correct? Yes, 9 years old, going on close to, about 9 years old, unless I'm very much mistaken. We now have one very sleepy cat. Since we're here, and at the moment we've got spots completely hidden in grass, we can have a look at the tree that is currently obscuring her on the right, or partially on the right. That is a round-leafed teak. It's one that's coppiced slightly, which is why it's growing in so many different directions. It's something that elephants love to feed on when it's young. They almost farm in this area. She thought about lifting her head there, and then went completely back to sleep. And obviously the reason that I'm... Oh, heads up. She could, because it's cool this morning, she could well mate with him on an even more regular basis. So I've seen her on cool and cloudy mornings. I've seen them mate once every 2-3 minutes. So there's a good chance that she's going to get up at some point and harass him again, wherever he may be. Not entirely sure where that is. Just getting more comfortable in her blanket of grass. Look at that. It's fascinating. It's like looking at Shadow, but different. Same shape of the nose as well. It's incredible that a close to 100 kilogram leopard, I mean, I think Tingana must be about 90 odd kilograms, which is close to 200 pounds. It's amazing how a 200-pound leopard can quite literally vanish from view in this vegetation. I don't know where, I have no idea where he is. I think he's lying up behind her, but I really honestly couldn't tell you. He must be. There's no other place for him to hide. But I mean, Tingana is not a small male. He's not a small animal. And the disappearing skills of leopards. Now imagine you're tracking a leopard on foot, walking through this kind of vegetation, and It's the Sabi Sands leopards, so most of them are exceptionally comfortable with people walking about them. Obviously, within reason. You keep your distance, they're still wild animals. But most of them, Karula for example, will be comfortable and stay lying down with a person up to 20 meters or as close to as 20 meters. How close were you, Brian, that one day? Probably about 30 meters.
From Karula?
From Karula.
When we first saw maybe 5.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh, Brent's got a snake.
Look at this. The apex predator of the reptiles. It's a big black mamba, probably about 2 meters. Oh, look at it go. Definitely not the biggest we've seen, but spotted by Viam. See where it went, Viam?
Going into that bush there.
Into that bush. Well, we're going to take a slightly wild bird to get closer. Viam can see its tail. Here we go. Incredible. So it's got nowhere else to hide apart from that little bush. I'm just going to go around a bit more so you can see its head. Now, as you can see, a black mamba is not black at all, but rather sort of a gunmetal grey. They get their name from the inside of their mouth being pitch black. Yeah, I think I see its body. There's some more of its body. Look at those scales. So it is hiding in one of the edible plants. I'm not going to go eat that plant though. I think it might be detrimental to my long-term plans. I wonder where the head is. Now, these are incredible predators. They hunt birds, lizards, chameleons, small mammals. Highly, highly neurotoxic venom. One of the most venomous snakes in the world. Yes, we did an interesting thing yesterday. We did a first aid training drill where I was bitten by, fortunately not a mamba, but a fictitious spitting cobra. And unfortunately, I did not survive the training exercise. Which obviously, you can see a bit of its body. You got it there, Vim?
Negative.
There we go, a little bit to the right. You can just see that there in the darkness. There we go. Try a slightly different spot. Now, one of the strangest things. Now, of course, we're not going to irate this large mamba too much. That's why we're keeping our distance. And I think it's going for the invisible vibes. And there we go. Matt in Nashville says he's been waiting to see a snake for weeks. There we go, Matt. That was a nice view of a black mamba. So obviously it's feeling slightly uncomfortable. That's why it's gone into that and it's hiding in that little thicket. But it's not really giving us another view. I'll try once more. I'm probably going to move away. Now I think there's also a hole there. There seems to be a slight termite mound next to it. So maybe that snake has disappeared underground. No, I can still see the body there. So this is what often happens with snakes. There we go. You can just see the piece of the body there. So they are far more scared of us than we are of them. So instead of attacking us, this snake is trying to avoid us and hide from us. So we're going to let it do that. But wasn't that amazing? That lovely sight of the apex reptilian predator. So we're going to go in search of more apex predators. And I think we'll add it along with our edible plant search. We'll search for apex predators of all kinds. One of those, of course, is the lion. And we're going to go check if we can find any tracks of the Nkahumas. And maybe we might be lucky enough to see a martial eagle, which is the apex predator of the air. Let's continue on. We're going to head east. Oh, we're on the eastern boundary, so heading north, trying to see what else we can find. So Veer is wondering, is it more toxic? Sorry, Veer, I'm looking at tracks. Is it more toxic than the Australian common brown snake? I'm not sure, but I do know Australia has the most venomous snakes in the world, and I don't know if the common brown snake is the most venomous, but if it is, I do know Australia has, I think, 2 or 3 species that are more venomous than a mamba. Oh, hello, kudus. Lovely little group of kudu. Those wonderful big ears. Oh, baby's off. Now, this little group of kudu had a couple of babies not too long ago, but unfortunately for them, they lost one of those babies to Djuma. Sorry, I think I've just move forward slightly. We've got leopard tracks here on the road. We also have honey badger tracks. We've got multiple sets of tracks here. It's going to be quite confusing to work out what's what. Now, we want the leopard tracks on top of the honey badger tracks, not the other way around. Unfortunately, it looks like the honey badger tracks are on top and the leopard tracks are heading into Torchwood. It seems like it was a very busy road last night. It's honey badger marching backwards and forwards. Just stopping and listening. Can you hear a Cape turtle up? I think I heard some elephants screaming just down the road. I'm going to go see if they're there. I'm going to keep my eye on the tracks. See if I've made a mistake. There's definitely female leopard tracks here as well. So I'm going to try to sort out what's going on with these footprints. While we do that, let's head back to Jamie with Tingana and Thandi.
Oh, wonderful news. We have the sighting all to ourselves for the moment, and therefore I don't have to whisper quite into the tucked up part of my shirt, because there's... Oh, no, somebody else is on their way. Here we go. Somebody's just joined us. So we've got the best visual that we can get at the moment. Believe it or not, I finally found Tingana. He is next to impossible to spot. Let me just see who's here. Isn't that incredible? There's a leopard there. And that's what I was talking about before Brent found that black mamba. We were discussing Brian's sighting with James on foot, and the fact that when they first saw Karula, she was 5 meters away, which is 15 feet, incredibly close. And she was perfectly comfortable with them. No, she just happened to stick her head up over the termite mound. Now, of course, immediately they moved away and to a slightly safer distance, or slightly nicer distance, more comfortable for both them and for her. But it does happen that occasionally you stumble upon a leopard. But just imagine trying to track an animal through this area. And this is where the true master trackers are so phenomenally skilled at what they do. Because they can track birds through the sky almost. Oh, the tail twitched there. Is she thinking about getting up? I love how he's managed to tuck himself right underneath the log where it's going to be really difficult for her to get to him and harass him. And almost all of the initial mating is initiated by the female.